Today's vodcast, V42, begins on slide 49 and goes through slide 65. We're learning about proportions today. A proportion is just an equation that states that two ratios are equivalent. So another way that you could say it is equivalent ratios, which we've talked about before. So here are some examples. 2/3 equals 12 over 18. And 5/9 equals 15 over 27. And just like we learned last time, we're going to show you two different ways to determine if they are equivalent. You can't see slide 51 in your packet, so we're going to do this in class. So skip this for now, please. So here we have a proportion, but we're missing one of the numbers. So we have 2/3 equals 6 over some number. Just like with equivalent ratios, we can do this one of two ways, either equivalent ratios or cross product. So we're going to show you the first way first, equivalent ratios. You start on the side without the variable, so we're going to start over on the side with 2/3 and say to ourselves, how do we get from this side to the other side? Our answer here is we multiply by 3. 2 times 3 gives us 6. So just like with equivalent ratios where we knew both of the numbers, you're going to do the same thing on the bottom. 3 times 3 gives you 9, so x is 9. Here's another example using the same process. Starting on the side without the variable, we say how do we get from 28 to 7? We divide by 4. 28 divided by 4 is 7, so we do the same thing on the bottom. 32 divided by 4 gives us 8. 8 is our answer for x here. Here's our first example on our own. We have 2/5 equals 8 over x. We start on the side without the variable, which is this side, and we say how do we get from 2 to 8? Here we have to multiply by 4, and since we multiplied by 4 on the top, we have to multiply by 4 on the bottom, and 5 times 4 gives us 20. So x equals 20 for our answer. For the next one, we're starting where there's no variable, which is again the left side, but instead the variable is on top. So we're going to look down at the bottom and say how do we get from 9 to 36? Our answer is times 4. So because we multiplied by 4 on the bottom, we're going to do the same thing on the top. 4 times 4 gives us x, which in this case is 16. So x equals 16. Please pause the video and try just slide 56 on your own, showing the same work we have been doing. This one looks a little different, but if we follow the same thing we've been doing, you should be fine. So we're always starting on the side without the variable. In this case, it's the right side this time, but that doesn't change anything. We're still doing the same process. So from 12 to 60, we have to multiply by 5. And then from 4 to x, we're going to multiply by 5 again. So our x is going to be 4 times 5, which is 20. Please try just slide 58 on your own. So here's our second method, cross products, which we can use because in a proportion, the cross products are equal as well. These are still two equivalent ratios. So when we know everything, we just multiply diagonally, 12 times 5, or 5 times 12, and 2 times 30. These are equal to each other, or they should be, and 5 times 12 is 60, and 2 times 30 is 60. So these are indeed a proportion. Let's take a look at cross products in action. So here's our proportion. We're missing the denominator in the second ratio. So we multiply. X times 4 gives us 4x, and then 5 times 12. So we first cross multiply, and then I added this in, so please do so as well. You're going to set them equal to each other, simplify a little bit, so 5 times 12 is 60, and then solve for x. And all we have here is a one-step equation. You divide by 4 on both sides, which gives you 15. Looking at example 2, same thing, only we're switched this time. 48 times 7, put down here, 8 times x is 8x, so that's the second step. And then we have 336 is equal to 8x. And if you're more comfortable with the variable on the left, just go ahead and rewrite it. And then either way, we can divide by 8 on both sides, and you end up with 42. Here's something a little extra that you can just write in the lines on slide 60. So when would it be easier to use cross products instead of equivalent ratios? The answer is when equivalent ratios would not be a whole number. So if we look at this example, 2/5 equals x over 22. We start on the side without the variable, and we try to get from 5 to 22. There's no whole number that you can multiply times 5 to get 22, so you could get an answer by dividing 22 by 5, but it's going to be a decimal, and there's really no need to do that. So instead, if we use cross products, we multiply 22 times 2 and 5 times x, and we get 5x equals 44. We can divide by 5 on both sides, and we already know this is not going to be a whole number. And if you divide, you get x equals 8.8. So again, please take a couple minutes to write this down on the lines of slide 60. Let's try this first cross products example on our all together. So we have 9 over 51 equals x over 17. I'm always going to start by multiplying the number times x, and this will ensure that my variable is always on the left. So if I do 51 times x, I get 51x equals 9 times 17. I can simplify that to get 51x equals 153. And if I divide both sides by 51, I get x equals 3 as my final answer. For the next one, we have x over 12 equals 56 over 96. So again, I'm going to start on the side with that I would multiply by the variable, so I get my variable on the left, and I get 96x equals 12 times 56, which is the same as 96x equals 672. I just multiplied these two to get that. And then if I divide both sides by 96, I get, nope, that's not right. I get x equals 7. Now, these are some really big numbers that we're starting to work with. So cross products are also going to be helpful with that if you don't know your facts to get from 12 to 96. So that's another good use for cross products instead of equivalent ratio. Here's our last example together, and then you're on your own. Starting where I'm going to multiply by x, I'm going to do 18 times x equals 6 times 45. And 45 times 6 gives us 270. So if I divide by 18 on both sides, I get x equals 15. Now it's your turn to try slide 64 and 65 on your own. And please write Super Bowl on your last slide.